Welcome to Conversations in Culinary, your all-access pass to the world of the restaurant industry. Each episode, our guests will uncover the secrets behind your favorite dishes, from the bustling kitchens to the art of the plating, and hear from the chefs and insiders who make it all happen. Get ready to see the restaurant world like never before. Let's dig in.
My name is Jesse Valenciana. I'm currently in Nashville, Tennessee, formerly Chicago for my whole life. And I moved down here during COVID, and I've been down here. And realistically, the first year and a half that I was down here, I was kind of one foot out the door. I didn't know how to fall in love with Nashville because I was so, going back to the maybe divorce analogy, like, Chicago was my wife. I thought it was my wife for life. And COVID kind of like opened my eyes to things. And when I came down here, it was like, this might just be a rebound, right? And it's a rebound that I realized was probably the best thing for me. And I saw what I wanted to do with food in the food space down here. And, you make that mental checklist where like, okay, like what's working here? And here it is. And then I was always thinking about and talking about Chicago. And it was like, well, realistically, this wouldn't work in Chicago because this has been done in Chicago. And even if it hasn't been done in a long time, one of the gatekeepers in Chicago will let you know that it's been done. So all that aside, like people started to really embrace the food that I was making down here. And my partner, Audrey, and I, we started doing these pop-ups under the name Homesick together because we were both from Chicago and we're both homesick. And, we missed so many things about Chicago and they don't have it here. So we're like, well, why don't we do it? Why don't we try doing something that's reminiscent of what we miss in Chicago? And, besides just making it for each other, like let's do pop-ups and make it for other people. And people kept coming out and kept coming out. We were selling out every pop-up. And that just kind of grew. And, that was almost 3 years ago. And I ended up taking a job for a brewery in Louisville that I wanted to help out. And so I stopped doing pop-ups, and I was like, all right, it was a very immediate thing. I'm like, this has, insurance and 401k. So I thought that's what I want, right? Like that's safe, more safe than the pop-ups. And I took this job for a brewery that didn't really have their shit together. And I had this like stupid savior complex where I'm like, I can help everybody, and I was like, I got to help these guys. And ultimately they ended up making mistakes that just kind of doomed the entire organization. And I was not cheap. So they cut me and they're continuing to fail up, which is beyond me, but it forced me to move back down to Nashville, like full time, because I was splitting my time between Nashville and Louisville. And then I was like, fuck it. Like I'm tired of trying to help other people. Like the amount of energy, and it's not just time, it's that energy. You guys know how it is. Like when you put that time and energy into someone else's dreams and goals, then you're never going to see yours. And that's kind of how I looked at it. And it was like, I'm going to turn this around, and what I normally push forward for other people, I'm going to do for me and my goals. And got my business license here in Nashville a little bit over a year ago, about a year and 2 weeks ago was our 1 year anniversary. And
congratulations.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun. Like honestly, like I when I was in Chicago, the joy, like I was never a full-time, I'm not a chef, I'm a food writer that started a grilling club that blew up and got a lot of press and it was fun. But I wasn't putting in the hours in the kitchen like Chef Jupe, like you've paid your dues, man. I personally didn't know how to do that. So like this was new to me. And after the second book, like the first book was fun. And it's like you have all this time to write your first book, and it's a dream. Like it's like your first record for a band. Like you had your whole life to put the best product out there. And then the publisher was like, oh, cool. Like we're moving these books. Let's get another book. And before you're even like fully settled into the first book, you have to write this other book. And then at the time I was working for a brewery up there and traveling, and it was really stressful. And, I didn't tell anybody this, but I fell out of love with food because it became a chore, and it was stressful. And for the longest time, I kind of fell out of love with it. And then, like every story nowadays, it took COVID to make me really fall back in love with food. And actually, Chef Jupe and I did an online cooking thing during COVID, and like it was these little things like that really like sparked this like love again. And I was like, oh my God, I miss this. I miss this. And when I moved down to Nashville, like when we started doing those pop-ups, like that's when I really felt the love again, like the love of cooking, and then the people coming up and loving what you were doing, what you were making for them. So fast forward all these years now, like 3 years. And when I started my own company, it's that same feeling. And now it's we started doing pop-ups, and we do grab and go food all over town for a bunch of different accounts. We are about 4 days away from getting our first vehicle. We're getting like this little Japanese van that's being shipped over from Japan that we're going to, the business is called Secret Bodega. So the van's going to look like a little bodega on wheels.
That's awesome.
And there's a lot of upside here, and there's a lot of potential, and I'm really stoked about it.
Yeah. I feel like Nashville is a place that, like you said, it's, everything hasn't been done there, right? And it is a strong Chicago influence because so many Chicago businesses, restaurant groups, and stuff like that ran down there when the boom was happening in Nashville, And so I feel like Chicago sometimes you get stuck because, they're gonna have something to say about the bodega van. Does it have a hand washing sink on? It's gonna be something on the bodega van that Chicago is they can't wrap their head around, and it's going to prevent you from doing it. And you get to towns like Nashville, and it's like, hey, I think that's a cool idea. Like we would love for you to do it, So yeah, that's good, man. That's a great idea.
One of the things that I talk about my move from Chicago was like, you love Chicago, but sometimes Chicago doesn't love you back. Right.
Absolutely.
And there was like little things that made me feel that way. And I feel like during COVID, there was like some really fun things, but there was also some really negative things. Like, I think it was a time where more people should have collaborated and done like what we did, just like, hey, the world is open because it's so closed. So you can do whatever you want. And some people like became even more insular and just kind of stuck to what they knew. And then this like level of gatekeeping started to happen in Chicago culinary that I saw, where before, I could walk into any kitchen and just be like, spark up a conversation. And then people were like, yo, we should do something together. It was like, yeah, let's do it. Like we've done stuff together. And it's like, it was always so welcome. And then out of nowhere, it was like, no, it was like this weird, and this is my opinion, obviously, but I felt that like a lot of these chefs now were like, there was these trauma bonds where it's like, you never worked the line with me. Me and this guy used to like, we were addicted to drugs and alcohol. And so we've gone through the shit. You don't know it. So we're not going to do anything with you. And you're like, sorry. Like, and then like, you have that where they kind of kept outsiders out. And I felt like I was never like an insider, but like I knew people and people wanted to create, and it was fun. And then a lot of stuff too, like here, if you look at the menus that we do, we're always doing these different creative menus. And I'm very inspired by food from all over the world, like not just from my travels, but from Chicago. Like Chicago opened my eyes to so much food, and I incorporate so many flavors and ideas. And people love it here. We're like in Chicago, if I were to make like like some kind of like a Mexican torta with like Thai flavors, people would be like, yo, you can't be touching the Thai food. Right. Here, they're like, you're marinating like this with that. Amazing. I'll take 2 of them. It's like, it's different here. Like they want that stuff. They want, because this town isn't known for its like culinary prowess, but now like people are coming here and like following their dreams and doing what they want to do, and the people want it, and it's blowing up, and it's really great.
I have a question. Is there a same amount of ratio of closures in restaurants and people leaving the hospitality restaurant industry there as much as it seems to be here?
I keep in touch with a lot of people in Chicago, obviously, and I don't think it's as bad as it is in Chicago. Honestly, like what I'm seeing here, like the closures that I've seen are actually like bigger not institutions, but like bigger restaurants, not like these independently owned restaurants. And what I'm learning too is there is a lot of restaurant groups here, but I don't know, they seem like functional and like these groups care about what's under their umbrella, and I felt like in Chicago, it was a little bit more dysfunctional,
Yeah. Well, it's the South.
So it's weird. It's weird sitting down here and looking at what's happening in Chicago. It kind of makes me sad.
Well, I think it's the South, and, Nashville is the South. You're going to still have more Southern hospitality down there. And I think that that's going to give you an overall just more of a, people at the top that actually care about the people that's under them, and in Chicago, it's like this chase to be as big as New York or as important as of a food scene as New York and LA, whoever you want to group in that's supposed to be the best. Whereas in Nashville, I used to go to Nashville a whole lot. I haven't been in a year now, but the food sucked in Nashville for some time, for a while, like it was bad, and I think that that's what really sparked the opportunity when people started moving to Nashville like crazy, and the city was blowing up and you're getting this food down there and you're kind of like, huh, like what is this? It really had no identity. And you started seeing some of the groups from not only Chicago, but surrounding that started to pop open down there. You started seeing chefs leave Chicago to go to Nashville and open up because the cost of living was cheaper. It's probably about the same now. I don't know, but but the opportunities seem so much more broad than in Chicago. And even going back to the COVID times with Chicago, I think that people in Chicago were exposed. Like these restaurant groups were exposed, the chefs were exposed, and so you had all of these folks, whether it was like Me Too movement stuff that was happening in these restaurants and these chefs that were assholes for years and years were finally getting called out, and people actually had time because they were sitting at home to read about it and care, and I look back at some of these places that were supposed to be top of the top, and you're like, where is that chef at now? They're gone, they're gone, and so like it was that was probably my favorite part about COVID, as much as it sucked. I love seeing all these people get called out because it was like, man, you've been messing up the industry with that whole like energy, but we didn't know, we didn't care because everyone was just, we were so used to just going to this place because this place is hot, this group is big, they're opening up all these places, and I think that really limited the amount of opportunities for the people that wanted to do it the right way. And so, one of my things that I always take pride in here or wherever else I want to open is that, you're not only a product, but your culture, has to be consistent, in order for it to have longevity, and I can't wait to come see you in Nashville.
You've made some really great points. Like, starting with Chicago, like being the second city is something that, again, being removed from Chicago, these things that didn't mean anything when I was in Chicago, and it was like, oh, the second city. But Chicago's always had that kind of chip on its shoulder, like we're better than New York. And instead of being the best Chicago, they wanted to be better than New York. And, which was good in one way, that it brought hustlers. People like wanted to hustle and make it. And that's a good thing, right? But yeah, like that culture grew kind of like uncontrolled, and I'm with you, man. The Me Too movement that happened, that reckoning in Chicago was so long overdue. So many people that I know were affected by it. Family. My sister was affected by it. Like these things were like, it angers you, and yeah, like you're right. People had all this time on their hands, and they were like ready to call these people out. And it's like, for me, it's like so unfortunate that it took so long, but I'm glad that it did happen. And when it comes down here to Nashville, like Chicago had this reckoning, and a lot of these guys are just like, why am I still in Chicago? And, like they come down here, and the cool thing is with all these people moving to Nashville, they come down here, and you're right. Some of the food really, it used to suck, and people were like, I just bought a house in Nashville and like the food sucks. So then you get people that are like, hey, there's no good food here, so I'm going to make good food. And that's kind of what my thing was. I was down here, and I'm like, there was starting to get good food, but I'm like, there could be better food. There could be more fun food. And I want to contribute to that. So I see like these parallels between Chicago and Nashville in that regard, where like there's this hustle culture where people are like, yo, like, let's do this. No one's going to make this for us, do this for us. Like, we have to do it. And that was kind of like where I fit in, because I'm like, I've always been a hustler like that, where I'm like, I want this, I'm going to make it happen, you know? And when I shared my idea, because people are like, oh, do you want to open a restaurant? Like, hell no. Like, I'm not. I'll let people that know how to do this really well, I'll let them do it. Like, there is, what I've learned about entrepreneurship is the goal is not to invent something, right? Because we are in a time where, like, when you spend all this time and energy trying to invent something, by the time it comes to fruition, you're going to be so exhausted, you're going to need someone to carry you. And if you don't have that, you're going to be dead, and someone else is going to be like, oh, I'm going to do that better. And you've already done all the foundation work. So it's like finding something that exists and making it better. And my background is in marketing. So what I found and I loved about Chicago, and I was fascinated by, was like the roach coach culture. Mm-hmm. You know, like these trucks go around with mediocre food that's been in there in like a warming tray for 24 hours on a good day. And the unfortunate thing was, all these people eat that. That's like their source of dining. And that to me was like so gross, but like I saw an opportunity there, and there was no marketing. It's just like this random truck that's been driving around for like 40 years too long. It's polluting the environment, and you're eating shitty food from it. Like, what the fuck? Why are we, are we animals? Is this like the best thing that we can do? So like, my thought was, I'm already making food out of a commissary for so many different accounts in the city. And we sell hundreds of burritos a week for different accounts. So I'm like, why not? You know, let's talk profit margins. Like, my profit margins when I sell wholesale are a lot less than they can be. So like, what's my outlet? I don't want a food truck. I don't want a restaurant. I'm like, you know, this city is growing. And if you look all around you, I can look out my window and I just see cranes, because there's so many buildings being built. Yeah. So my idea was like, it came to me, and I'm like, I talked to my partner, Audrey. I said, babe, I think we've been doing this like not the wrong way, but I'm like, I think we have a purpose now. And I said, I want to get a vehicle, and I want to go to construction sites and sell the food that we're selling to customers already, to like actual customers, to like people, not just restaurants. And he kind of looked at me and was like, explain. And then I brought up the whole roach coach thing. And, you know, my dad was a carpenter in Chicago, a union guy, and he would always complain, like, if he didn't get to make breakfast, he's like, shit, I've got to like eat lunch from the roach coach. And it's the same thing here. There's like three or four of them for a city that is growing by like the tens of thousands every day. So it's like, that's where I saw where I could fit in, where I'm like, here, this is what I want. I want to bring good food to people that are building the city, you know? And then from a marketing standpoint, we have a name, we have, you know, cool logos, cool imagery. And then people you're going to get a whole new audience. And then you build this trust from these folks, you know, like now when they see your food in a different location, they'll be like, oh yeah, I had Secret Bodega burritos for lunch, and now like they're having a sandwich over here. So that's kind of where my head was, you know, and I didn't want to go and try to start a restaurant. I'm like, I want to feed people a different way. And that's kind of how I came up with this concept.
That's an awesome concept, man. It's a scalable concept too. I mean, even if you wanted to take it on a late night type of move with, you know, that Secret Bodega could be successful in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
And, you know, and I thought of like, for me is I wanted to make it scalable because, you know, I only half jokingly said, I'm like, I'm going to get this van, but I'd love to have a fleet, because this is something the city needs more than one Secret Bodega bus. I call it the Bodega bus just because I like alliteration. But, you know, this is something, there's a lot of other cities that can use a Bodega bus. You know, like there's a lot of cities that have nightlife, that have construction going on. And once I get the model perfected here in Nashville, it's like I can look into, you know, maybe not Louisville, small, but like a city like St. Louis, you know, like where they have a lot of the same parts as any other mid-sized city. So yeah, that's that's been my kind of goal and dream here. Once I finally figured out what I wanted to do, I'm like, this has legs. And, Nashville, going back to what we started with, like, this would have never worked in Chicago, or like it would have taken a lot more work and
years of
fighting
paper
with the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, trademark that bodega bus if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, marketing guy.
Oh, we're on it. We're like, there's so many things that we're like, all right, this is ours. Like, and it's been great. That to me is, it's almost like I'm working for someone else again, but it's like, oh wait, this is my company. Like, I'm my own marketing director, which is cool.
Yeah, you're everything. So thanks for giving us your time. I know you're squeezed for time today, so I really appreciate you getting on this podcast with us. So I'm going to close with one question that I'm going to pretty much ask everybody, just FYI. If somebody were to tell you something that you wish you would have known today, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Not to sound cheesy, but like, it's not so much what someone were to tell me, but like, that's a tough one. It's like, I think I wish I would have known when I was younger that I could do it myself. That someone could have told me, like, hey man, all this time and energy that you're putting into someone else's work, like, envision, put it into yours. Like, I always thought, like, you grow up, you get a good job for doing whatever, and you become successful. And it's like, that belief in myself didn't grow until I was a little bit later in life, and I was already in the process of working for others. So I wish somebody would have said, hey man, you can succeed doing your own thing. I wish my dad would have said, like, my dad was a blue collar guy, and he worked for the city, and it was like his boss was the city. And, his whole thing was like, see, you get a good job and you move up. And I wish he would have been like, you could do it on your own. You can make a good job. Like, that's the thing. So yeah, I guess the long story longer is, I wish somebody would have told me that I could have done this for myself, and all that energy and growth could have been into my own personal company. And I could have started this thing, a decade ago, 2 decades ago.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you. And don't be surprised if we call you back again.
I love it. And thank you guys so much. This is exciting. And thank you for letting me just ramble on and, catch up with you guys. You guys are great.
I know. When's the last time you guys talked to each other?
Shit, COVID.
Not since COVID.
See, this
Chef,
is the brilliant part.
You got to come down here, and I'm telling you, man, this land is ready for people with the talent level that you bring to the table, man. You would kill it down here, and
I truly appreciate it.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, I'm gonna come see you, man, for sure. We go drive around on that bodega bus, man. We go scout some locations.
That's awesome. All right, you have a good one.
You have a good one, brother.
I'll see you guys.
All right.
Thanks for digging into this episode of Conversations in Culinary. Follow and subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss future episodes. Please leave a positive rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Find In Culinary on Facebook and Instagram and inculinary.com.